Where do we start? A gesture, a thought, a curve. A curve can be a hug, a hook, the swish of a broom, an umbrella, a fresh start. A curve is a line leading to a poem, a story, a painting, a beckoning, a disruption, an anthology. An anthology called a shape produced by a curve from Great Weather for Media. And today, it's our third Zoom reading of anthology contributors, and we're ready to take a deep dive into 8 fantastic contributors. And by the time we're done, I think you'll want to dig deeper into our anthology, dig deeper into the work of all these writers you're going to hear about, and maybe dig deeper into the rest of Great Weather for Media. So without further ado, I would like to bring on the first writer, John Amen.
You're muted, David.
That happened. Start again. John Amen is the author of 5 collections of poetry, including An Illusion of an Overwhelm, finalist for the 2018 Brockman-Campbell Award, and work from which was chosen as a finalist for the 2018 Dana Award. A recipient for the 2021 Jack Grape's Poetry Prize, John's poems and prose have appeared recently in Rattle, Prairie Schooner, Rhino, and Los Angeles Review, and his work has been translated into Spanish, French, Hungarian, Korean, and Hebrew. He founded and is managing editor of Pedestal magazine. John Amen.
Wow, great to be here. Thanks for the intro. Thanks for pulling this together. I set my little timer here. Yeah, great to share on this platform and great to be in the anthology. I'm really honored and grateful. I'm going to read 3 poems. All 3 of these are new pieces that will be appearing in my new collection that comes out in March 2024 from New York Quarterly Books. And I'll start out with a piece called No Longer July. Sometimes it jumbles, beats from a K-pop project, Stefan's poem about the coordinates of war. Detective Ana Garcia's voicemail splits the airwaves, how she unscrewed the door from its hinges, boring her flashlight into a curtained room. Richard, slumped in his chair, a scarecrow with a postcard lacquered to his chest. Now I rescan the email from his ex, insisting that she loved him despite the way their short summer ended. Regardless of who loved who or didn't, it's been a year since I swore off arguing with the dead. The things we carry. How it's never enough to stand shirtless in a field singing the truth. You need someone across the fence to applaud, to say, yes, you were there when the gun went off, though you weren't. Yeah, you reached for the barrel at the last moment, though you were 500 miles away, rummaging through bills or changing a light bulb or trying to get to the bottom of why your newspaper wasn't delivered. I wish I could tell her that if she weeps long enough, he'll return, floating above her king-sized bed at 3 a.m., mouthing, all is forgiven, baby. But even he can't chase away that reek of sulfur. It's all yours. It hovers, thick as guilt or longing or resentment, until you don't need it anymore. You roar in the middle of the night. It's gone. Thank you. And all these poems, and most of the poems in the book came out of the death of essentially my last family member named Richard. And this is the piece that is in the anthology titled "Last Fugue." And again, grateful to have this piece in here. Last Fugue for Richard. Richie bopped his horn to the flight attendant's throat, huffed a middle C. Later, in the come-down cab, he diced New York, New York, with the window down. He sparked cigarettes, tossed them out. Every time the driver asked, "Where are we going, man?" he flared a renegade note, high on centipede traffic, Babel-like buildings, and the million vampire eyes, how they wouldn't stop staring at him. He was lucky not to get his teeth bashed in, pinching the joint from some Goliath in Rogue's Alley. But he was a good talker. Soothe, charm, disarm. And next thing you know, he's crashing on Mr. Frat Guy Junkie Dude's sofa, squeezing his horn for the circus to hear from a fire escape somewhere on Lexington, 22 degrees Fahrenheit. "Come get your brother," the guy said, strapping his teeth. "His eyes look like trash can lids, and he won't climb his crazy ass out of my bathtub." I was up rivers and dreams, top 40 tunes wafting in a palisade, trying to wind my way through my own tripwire labyrinth. The guy put him on the phone. I said, "Richie, you'd best get out of there and find a hotel. I can pay for a night or two." "Those vagabond shoes," he mumbled, and I could hear water splashing in the tub. It was like we were kids again. I was the Pharaoh, and he was Moses, holding back the blood-red sea with his bare hands. By the time I rattled the boarding house screen, Richie had fled, leaving his black Crocs in a flower pot. The guy was a little embarrassed, like he was trying to swallow something too jagged to fit down his throat. I wandered pawn shop aisles, east and west by the jazz clubs, searching for my brother, the madman with the dented horn. Wasn't the first time, wasn't the second time, wasn't, well, it would be the last, but I won't get into that now. See where my time is at. I'm good. Um, so this is the closing poem in the collection. I'll end here with this one. This is called Impermanence for Thea. Richie finally gets his '69 Corvette, cruises uptown Bardo with big cash, shredding solos for his mentor, treating the cheerleaders, the hot dogs, and beer. I text the ferryman and convince him to skip our port, lassoing the goodbye sun. Richie idles on a boomerang curve, honking for me to join him. Those last days of summer, that teenage Gethsemane frayed my wiring. These decades later, I flicker in doorways, at thresholds, battlegrounds where the sidewalk ends and the rest of your life begins. Richie goads his Corvette clouds that diamond ramp launching into the twilight. Of course, the ferry arrives. You lean over the balcony, tangled in rainbow vines, waving to me. A terrible wind blows, and I page back to the rough water. When the anchor drops, I want to run for the bluffs, steal another day, another shimmering chorus, but my feet are frozen, and night crashes on the shore. Thank you.
Show your love for John Amen.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for starting it out, John. Susana Praver-Pérez is a pushcart-nominated poet and a winner of the San Francisco Nomadic Press Literary Award from 2021. Her work has been published widely in various journals and anthologies. Susana's first full-length collection of poetry entitled Hurricanes, Love Affairs, and Other Disasters was published by Nomadic Press in 2021 and earned the 2022 Penn Oakland Josephine Miles Literary Award. Here's Susana Praver-Pérez.
Thank you, David. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for the invitation. And thank you for including my poem in this gorgeous anthology. Anthologies often are like a gathering of poets, but this one in particular, because just a little something I noticed, the poem that I have in the anthology references a poet named Mario Jose Pagan Morales, who also appears in the anthology, and his poem references me. So it's a little bit of community happening within the pages of this gorgeous book. I'm going to share 3 poems. All 3 of them come from my upcoming book, which is called Return Against the Flow, which will be published by Black Lawrence Press early in 2024, and one of which is in the poem in the anthology. I'm going to start with a poem that sort of is a little bit of a background of where the anthology poem comes from. And this is called Letter Written on a Cloudy Morning with a cup of Yacono in my hand and Ray Barretto playing on the radio. My legs stretch wide like a ballerina's jeté. I have finally put in place the bifurcated life we imagined, un sueño de pájaros preñao. My left foot lands among California poppies, lavender, and oxalis, named a weed, though I find joy in their yellow-petaled faces and lemon-flavored stems. Our rescued feral slinks through tall grass, her calico coat still woven with wild. Inside the Oakland bungalow we bought when freshly wed, and the neighborhood was still flecked with crack houses. There is steady light, a soft bed, a fridge filled with yogurt, tomato, and greens. My right foot steps among fallen fruit and leaves of a mango tree, icon of your youth, then stomps roaches that run for cover, scatter in the Caribbean light. There is ajo, cilantro, y cebolla in the kitchen. I have finally leaped, querido, into the vision we shared, but that I shredded like cirrus clouds from cumulus billows overhead. I'm sorry, querido. Your wild wings always frightened me, but you were never made for a cold northern cage. I offer amends with my own sort of wild. A house bought sight unseen in Borinquen, amada Tierra Santa, where your ashes have surely settled by now. Fears fly off like seagulls. Sea breeze slaps my face awake. I pinch my arms and thighs. My legs stretch and glide across the globe, glistening like the polished wooden dance floor in California, where, 2 seeds dreaming in the wind, we first met. Thank you. So the next poem is the poem from the anthology, if you happen to have it. It's on page 95. If you don't have it, get it. And this is called Títeres in the House. And it's dedicated to Ponce, Profe, D-Bird, Isa, and Red. My house is filled with poets. New York in their rearview mirrors as they search for homes of their juventud and a sacred secret that sleeps in la selva. They roll up in sandals and fedoras on a pit stop to forever. Unfurl tattoos that read like road maps. Drum black nails on a table quietly turn tambor. They speak names of towns that etch lifelines on their palms. Juncos, Fajardo, Guayanilla, Santurce, invoked like oraciones, with a Nuyorican spin. We cruise on foot, past graffiti-covered buildings, the patios and gardens of La Goico, Casa Laurel in la Calle Luisa, leaning lampposts that point towards the sea. Everything seeds verse. Tortugas' sandy nests, the last sandwich in Supermax, mi sancocho. Coquilles sing as evening lands. We overfill a van with our voices, head for San Juan, wander cobblestone streets, stumble on metaphors in la Plaza de Armas, where una dama hawks billetes de la lotería y un señor sells limbers de parcha y cherry. Poet's Passage turns magnet on Tuesday nights, pulling bards into its bohemian womb. Red velvet walls and filigreed light bathe us in a muse's brew. Lady Lee midwives poems from neighborhood and nomadic mouths. A cicada flutters from a shy girl's lips. A man with a lion mane roars. Sabrina flirts into the mic, and we all fall in love with words, with la gente, with la vida in sí. We take our turns spitting poems in the spotlight, lay our books on Lady Lee's shelves. The night is electric. Alchemy of rhythms as primal as heartbeats and star glow glistening on our skin. We ramble late night streets, our reflections dancing on plate glass windows. Memories rising an aroma of oceans as shopkeeps sweep sidewalks and clock hands point us home. Thank you. And I'm going to close with another poem that is from the book. It's a poem written to my son, and it's also written as a prayer to our sacred and delicate earth. It's called May It Be. This gift of waking is the same, but gathering twigs and cooking by flame impacts the earth more softly than our modern morning rites. Symphonic swell of birdsong paints a crisper air than highway hum. Dear atom, dear molecule, remind me we are still made of stardust as fire ash fills our lungs and green-scented mornings are sacrificed to avarice and ease. How, sweet son, do I share the secrets of centuries when monarch migrations teeter on extinction in our lifetime? How do I light candles, praise forward-flowing ties, generation to generation, as if guaranteed? I thrill to see the timeless glow of love in your young eyes. Delight as you taste the sweetness of heirloom figs. See wonders strung like rosaries. I want to become an ocean, buoy the future, seaweed swirling like a bamboo skirt around my waist, plankton glistening on my skin. I pray to quell rising seas that swallow islands. I pray that grass sprouts on scorched hills. I pray for the monarch, rhino, sea turtle, lemur. I pray for the earth's healing so that you, querido hijo, may know the vastness of the sky's blue and the fullness of the river's length. Thank you.
Snaps and claps for Susana, Praver-Pérez. Again, Susana. Norm Mattox is a retired educator whose poetry tells a story of love and resilience in these times of challenge, struggle, and transformation. Norm's first chapbook, Get Home Safe, Poems for Crossing the Community Grid, was published in 2016. Nomadic Press published his second chapbook, Black Calculus, in 2021, as well as an audiobook by the same title. But here comes the real thing, Norman Mattox.
Hey, thank you for the invitation. Thanks for including my poem in this lovely collection. And I am really, really grateful for the nomination of this poem for the pushcart prize. So here we go. Oh, by the way, this can also be found in my most recently released Four Crescents, a collection of poems published by Carlaftes Press. Can't forget that. Barbecue, not a picnic. My only crime, sir, was showing up to a picnic I wasn't invited to. Sir, my words might come out the side of my mouth. There's an awkward tilt to my head. But the truth is, they're going to say I ran after them. And when I caught up to them, they're going to say they wrestled the 5 axe handles from inside my shirt, the 14 fists from inside my jaw, the razor blade from behind my scrotum. And sir, they're going to tell the court I showed up with this noose around my neck and tripped on it during the melee. Sir, if you put my shoes on their feet, would anything about their account of what happened, me ending up in the tree, taller than when I left my house this morning, could it be true? So help them God? I know it's difficult to make a point when my broken fingers are going in 10 different directions. I'm sorry if my voice is a little strained and my words are a little slurred, but these last phrases are having a hard time getting around this knot in my throat. Next piece. Verses beneath my skin. A moment in time is an ocean. I am a tear. Someday you may look down, see the elephant crawl through the fence in the palm of your hand. The weight of a pause collects a beat of silence, waiting to stop full before I reverse field. I step out of my face, look behind the mirror, discover a galaxy beneath my skin. My inward-facing telescope peers over the horizon. We exchange internal flames to enlighten the abyss. Concrete softens, hearts melt. Molten soul evaporates off a parched desert. Next piece. Fear doesn't live here anymore, though it has left its imprint. Raised in the trauma of white supremacy, My skin worn like a Halloween costume, a never-ending season of trick or treat. I open the door, a smile devolves a grimace into a toothy sneer you can't read through the masks I wear. My life, a sweet morsel treat, fills in the cavities worn away by gnashing teeth, ground down by deterministic terror. I dread becoming indifferent to the persistent need to show up, defending my right to life in a society dominated by a white supremacy mindset, one whose systemic threats would disappear me like an exhalation, fade to black. I am not a byproduct of breathing. I am oxygen. Next piece. Profound change is transformation. Good things and bad things end. Transformation is the death of old, creating something new that will become old. Awareness of transformation, a balance between what was and what is becoming. Arms letting go while reaching for the same thing, like poles of a globe. Extremes passing through the equator, a middle that is hot, itself extreme, to both poles, frigid. What's the fulcrum between freezing and boiling? Invisible becoming visible and disappearing, between liquid and vapor. Sublimation, when both occupy the same time and space. Life is the dissolution of the former and faith in the latter. Balance is a meditation between the din of Babel and the silence of discernment. Inertia, the non-action that carries the end to momentum of action. Silence carries the echo of noise, even when you no longer hear the sound. Transformation is life on the way to becoming something unplanned. This last piece, I had some trouble with, but the muse made me write it anyway. Oppressor doesn't ask permission. What would make you so mad you couldn't speak your mind, that you would make a fist? What would it be that made you so mad that you made a fist, want to throw it at something? What if this society determined it was your lack of self-control, making a fist, holding it too long, throwing at something meant wishing fist-like harm on someone? They's not going to want to see a fist. Going to want to prevent your crime. Need to squash the will to resist before you vent your criminal fist. They expect their control is absolute. Better control yourself. Better move that fist to the back of your jaw. Hold it long enough for dentists to question a mound of pulverized enamel piled next to plateaus where molars used to stand. Better change the dental landscape. Braces and bridges applied before bits of tongue are chewed, bloody, and they can't understand why your voice is barely audible behind clenched teeth and pursed lips. Lawmakers want to put a rope around your voice and act like judicial and penal systems reset triggers, impersonating landmines around red lines drawn in quicksands that surround an island, an oasis, and other land, tribe, community, where gentrified, known as white flight, brings to memory. Whitewash is ethnic detergent. Peace.
Give it up for Norm Mattox. Thanks again, Norm. Amy King is the recipient of the 2015 Women's National Book Association Award. Her latest poetry collection, The Missing Museum, is a Tarpaulin Sky Book Prize winner. She is the co-editor of the anthology Big Energy Poets, Echo Poetry Thinks Climate Change, and the anthology series Bettering American Poetry. King is a professor of creative writing at SUNY Nassau Community College. I'm happy to bring you Amy King.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me okay? Thank you, Jane and David, for the anthology. I'm very grateful. I have not been sending my work out for a very long time, so it was really nice to have an acceptance from this wonderful anthology. I'm going to read the poem from there now and just a couple of others. Glad he is getting his flowers. That I would somehow meet her in the middle of years, fit almost as strangely as the sex we began our together with, off-kilter zeitgeist spasms where nothing is, if it is at all, still looking the same as sisters, twins, bisexual wives. We began renaming the world and our transformation into it. Supply chains going molasses into gas, and the world goes by barely sluggish, barely in it. The world is rarely a part of itself these days, skin hanging from its shelves and ropes and bones of universe within. I rarely recall my sinew before the year we virally died, except for benches on which stories cheered us apart, the veil of narration and a compass to misdirect the way. He lays his flowers on my grave, the single man applauding his demise within the folds of my flesh, our feminine death laid to rest in the corpse of his life. Thank you. That's the end of that one. Now I'll do a kind of more political one. And then just a more of a frivolous one. This is called Speak Now Into Being, and it starts with a quote. They should never have given us uniforms if they didn't want us to be an army. And it's from The Handmaid's Tale, Offred, the series, not the Atwood novel. Let the starting commence. Our Father, we revere the man, as many know only of reverence. The examples history has written. The matriarchs demoted, how quickly history denied her goddess. But Kali cannot be held from fire for long. Let the cleansing catch flame. Who will render gods obsolete? Who will tell the basement men their shootings won't get the pussy they deserve? Pussy begins to speak, vagina dentata deploying words from every cervix, armed and otherwise. Speak now into being. I was a married single mom. My answer is when there are 9. These are quotes you can't tell by the reading. The father as a whole has failed. Rarely parent, infrequent spouse, picks up child from school, makes a monthly barbecue, sends a bill for sex and applause, pulling Timmy from the bath. Pussy came from housewife, slut from sloppy, tart from pastry. It's giving the language of changing tides. Our latest updates make bad men feel worse, make others learn metaphor and the power of no in foreign permutations. Trauma farmers pulled into the light. The slow burn of male-centric women deprogramming headline by headline, TikTok by TikTok. Anyone, no gender, can speak now into being. Listen, this is important. Those who continue the path of the populace will miss out. The sounds of losing keep falling from their mouths, pushed out with the force of 1,000 toddler tirades. Legacy and leaders are golden calves, all show and no meat. No communal child rearing, no cherishing the feminine. Idols leading to no God, at least one that fails his offspring. The heart of the matter is heart, and she will continue practicing the sound of winning until the room erupts in song. All right, no more seriousness. Thank you. This one is a silly one, but fun, I think. It's called Why the Shining. My favorite genre of music on YouTube is really fucking bad music. TM. Carrie also started as an innocent teen. Thank the land gods for that. Elsewhere down the dock, she is 2 days in the past, 3 days later. The new maid and gardener are just coming in. The intimacy of laundry and plants knowing each other. I keep adding so much to everything and take away from nothing. The piles are growing, the music listening back. The bluebird chirps against the beat, a clueless dance frequency. My first inner omen and spiritual reading. Reading today sounds stupid and normal, you mean? This swath of life we carry is but a tangent, almost absent in the length of wars and peace. I sound like someone who's been to school. I'm an appreciator of the art of ameliorating our elders' psyches. David Lynch couldn't have meditated it better. So yes, I say to me, if I left her alone, she would memorize the B-side's entirety. The opening bully scene was, yeah, my opinion only. I bet that was the thing she wishes, that life could be bled into a tombstone. Back to the way The Shining was very good. No answer, echoes only. I like the kind of dissociation where you don't know what happens to you. I'm a nest, I'm a bluebird chirping a dance, an egg too. Sing with me this bounty. If you can't figure out what to say, borrow from the kids around you. They know things, like learning. That's the catch. Exist in the middle of nowhere and everything, and you'll make yourself a home. Thank you.
Everybody, that was Amy King. Again. And thank you, Amy. Paul Corman-Roberts is the author of the full-fledged poetry collection, Bone Moon Palace, Nomadic Press 2021. I think that Nomadic Press is getting a lot of promotion today. And the graphic chapbook, The Sincere, Libra Apocalypse Books, 2022. He currently serves as the co-director of the Beast Crawl Literary Festival in Oakland, California, where he works, lives, and dreams. Paul Corman-Roberts.
Thank you, David and Jane and the entire Great Weather crew. Appreciate it. Just 4 shorties here. This is called Closer Look. Everyone says the man in the moon looks like he's singing a love song, no doubt. And the long dialectical debates have raged on down the millennia, whether this song is a sad love song or a joyous love song. No one ever seems to say the man in the moon might not even be a man, might not even be human, perhaps another face altogether, shocked, terrified, and filled with foreboding, as they bear witness to the opening of a Pandora's jar. An experiment gone so very wrong. Shh. It's a secret. This is called A Conference of Confused Hominids. Congress to ponder how a skeletal frame such as yours came to exist inside their dominion, clearly evolved and formed in a realm outside gravity and solar or lunar light, layer upon layer, though it appears there should be none, as if drops would drizzle on top of one another while also next to each other. The implication, there is no such thing as only one dimension. Your accompanying oracular arachnid who claims one eye where there should be many, and how could there be when clearly someone or something else lies restless, turning and preparing to spore forth into a Pacific updrift, never seen before by any mirrors we have known, going over a landscape gone clistogamous, scientifically speaking, of course. We do everything we can, hoping even one of these seeds can catch a break out there. And we're still here. Excellent. Thank you. Next up, this is the piece that is in A Shape Produced by a Curve. I'm so honored and privileged to have this piece included in this amazing collection of writers. It means the world to me. The Death of Plants in 3 Acts. Act 1, when spiders make webs. When we crash and burn our lives together, holding hands at first, then pulled apart by gravitas, there is no right time for skipping town. You just know when that window slams open, a sounding alarm only you can hear. When we tear off our clothes in the middle of morning rush hour at the corner 7-Eleven, it's got to be quick. Keep explanations to a minimum, as the people you have built your life around try to wrap their heads around a world that doesn't have you in it. When we're all alone and we know our lover is with someone else at that moment, all the questions follow. What about our standing lunch date? I thought maybe we'd give us another shot. No, honey, this passive aggression cannot stand, and we're out of ammo. It's every lover for themselves in this disco abattoir that calls itself a city. When all the cords are cut, I'm going to spin myself a nice cottage up on the beach up north. No, you can't visit, because even I don't know where it is yet. Act 2. When you hold a tooth in your palm while teaching a class. I was studying for the role of a grave robber in a play, needed to learn how to use a butterfly knife, the precursor to the switchblade. The butterfly knife was the scourge of early Victorian times, the element to unleash a reign of lawlessness upon the everyday working folk. One has to hold a butterfly knife loose in the palm, not in the center, almost falling off the hand, with blade latch unhooked. A deft circular movement of the wrist is required, so the blade flies open and the handle settles fully into the palm. And in theory, this is poetry in motion, the instrument of death and chaos easily accessed and seeming to appear from nowhere. But in practice, it's best to have band-aids on your hand. Act 3. How do you process the death of your plants? You break out your juju grouch bag, fondle the lucky stones therein, hold them over a freshly lit candle, and hum the name of your lost family members. Shady Wollstonecraft, Atticus Esmeldera, ouchie fingers. All the while rolling the quartz and obsidian stones between your fingers. Deep down, you know they are too good for the compost pile. But what is your alternative? The landfill garbage container? The recycling bin? Yes, the recycling bin. If I put my babies into the recycling bin, they may perhaps reincarnate as a well-intentioned nonprofit organization somewhere in another part of town, and will be able to visit with one another once again. And finally, I will close out with a piece in response to, every couple of years, somebody, talks about how has to write a big open op-ed or think piece about why poetry is dead. And I get so sick of those. So here's a poem about why poetry is dead. Because it won't make you rich. There are no poetry billionaires. There are no poetry millionaires. There are no poetry thousandaires. There are no poetry agents. There are no poetry managers. Well, there are poetry managers, but poetry managers are even more broke than poets. Poetry doesn't have a retirement plan. Poetry doesn't own a yacht. Poetry don't get down with yacht rock. Poetry never makes the first move. Poetry costs more than it makes. Poetry eats more than it works. Poetry refuses to control the center. Poetry's application to the country club always gets shit-canned. Poetry is insolvent. Poetry is bankrupt. Poetry has no hedge fund, isn't listed on the New York Stock Exchange. Poetry chooses the path of most resistance. Every hostile takeover of poetry has failed. The holy ghost of the poet Rupi Kaur might have been compels you. Poetry moves the king. How can poetry even be alive? What does it mean to be alive? Poetry moves the king into the attack square. What does it mean to be dead? Poetry is viral. Check. Poetry has no cure. You can't stop talking about how it's dead. Checkmate. You're dead, because poetry dies every other year, just like rock and roll, baby. Thank you again, Great Weather. Thanks everyone for being here.
Share your love for Paul Corman-Roberts. Thank you, Paul. Checking my phonetic notation. Dara Kalima, also known as the community poet, is a Bronx, New York resident who started writing at 9, dedicated herself to the craft at 16, and locked into her voice at 25. She is the founder of Black Authors Collaborative and serves as vice president of Poetics University, an international home for all poets. In addition, she co-hosts Word to Words, a monthly poetry-focused podcast, and hosts a solo podcast on behalf of. Dara has authored 4 books: Black Man, Black Woman, Black Child, 2015, Casualty of Love, 2017, 2 X chromosomes with an extra shot of melanin, that's 2019, and Still Laughing, 2021. I'm so happy to bring to you Dara Kalima.
Thank you. Thank you, Great Weather for Media, for having me. Thank you, David, for getting it right. I'm sitting here chuckling. 3 poems. The last one will be the one in the book. The first one, Rain, Rivers, and Cups. This morning, on my own time, I disrobed, leaving the long gown to lay with the slumber, and I stepped into the tub. I turned on the shower, setting its temperature somewhere between lukewarm and cool. I chose my more abrasive, exfoliating African loofah net to assist in this daily routine. 4 pumps of body soap. Pump, pump, pump. Lathering loofah, then body, contently inhaling the essence of vanilla as I awakened all parts of me. Face, neck, arms, pits, nipples, follicles, thighs, labia, anus, toes. All cleaned and lovingly stimulated. I linger as the man-made rain washes away all remnants of yesterday, sleep, and suds. I stay here breathing, basking, savoring the kiss of each drop as if pecked by my lover again and again along every curve. And when the mood passes and I'm satisfied, I turn the knobs and exit the shower. Body gets jabbed delicately by the dabbed. Let's try it again. Body gets dabbed delicately by the plush terry as to not drip through the next steps while not yet drying my sensitive skin. Then teeth meet paste and electric brush. Then tongue meet scraper, feeling that familiar internal discomfort. Even before lotion seals moisture, I grab my floral panties and reach for the altar then pad, not yet ready for the cup. The rush will be here soon. And I laugh. Then the edges of my expression give way to gravity, corners descending heavily. I place $30 lotion on my skin, thinking of that comedic scene based on the unfunny reality where the inmate held a 5-ounce plastic drinking cup, not knowing the Mistral ones are made of silicone. She debated trying to insert the rigid tool into her sensitive spaces because the prison refused to provide ample supplies. Tampons were a luxury, cups a dream. And that pad made for 8 hours was stretched to 8 days. But hysterectomies were free and coerced. My sisters, in pain, bonded by rivers of blood, were flooding like their names were Katrina or Sandy, avoidable tragedies that weren't worth the investment. In that moment, I stopped my routine and let emotions reign instead. Thank you. And the show was Orange is the New Black. It's the most hilarious scene, but also a very painful thought if you're a woman. I never ever stuck anything in there. Them superheroes. Black women, since dawn until the bewitching, have always been and will always be here at the ready, the go-to, the healer, the cure, the scapegoat, the blame, the truth. Whether fictional or in factual depictions, no matter the diction or dialect, they have been the soother, the mover, the accuser, the rub, the bruise, the bruisee, the refuge, and the refugee. Their bodies are more commodity than autonomous. Baby factories for fields and prison, for milk production, for museum exhibits, for ogling, experimentation, exploration, exploitation, fetishism, escapism, pathways, trains. Trained to take lashing, saying nothing. Trained to organize fights for rights not to be heard. Trained to train others. Black women whose bodies grow roots and bushes and knots and clots and babies and plots and movements and change and armies and nations. Black women who at church are called mother, at conventions are called auntie, at conferences are called Sora, at brunches are called sister, on streets are called ugly, slut, whore, or DOA, when requiring peace over solicitations. Black women who may or may not ever be labeled wives, only wifeys, who are always under or uncompensated when their labor is demanded to teach you, and who can and will fix a wicked brew just to teach you. Black women who just want to not always be on call, who just want their phones not to buzz, who wish their trauma-induced empathy won't superhero them at suggestions of danger or despair. The interchangeable defense triggers requiring her more. Always. Never does she want to give it. Never does she want to. They don't want to. Black women want to not be on, not at the ready, not tested. We just wish to be. And that was called Them Superheroes. I don't know if I said it in the beginning or not. And again, thank you, Great Rutherford Media. The last piece, which is in the book, a shape produced by Curve. This isn't working. I'm really honored y'all chose this poem. Just saying that. On the dark, haunted night, with tears as my only friend, after a week where the only people pouring into me were the nurses, slow dripping minerals into my IV. And after a week where life felt more like a sexy sadistic succubus than a fragile gift, I had an epiphany while buried under trauma and aches and grief and heartbreak and stress and questions and demands and needs and anything that anyone anxiously or angrily chose to leave at the feet of this busy Black woman that all too often makes magic out of nothing but her fluids. We, Black women, I have naively and lovingly and willingly, sacrificially, almost martyrly, then unwillingly, under duress and forcibly manifested magic from our fluids till dehydrated, anemic, and hypotronemic. I am depleted, a husk. My body and life have a vacancy. Open it to spirits that beckon me to drink and visit the creepiest crevices of my mind, or times, or spaces as I escape from this existence, for this is no kind of existence. But I realized I no longer wanted to flee. I instead accepted my despair without a want to disappear. And after Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of agony, Monday eventually came quickly, following what felt like a million years of seconds filled with sprinting crawls. I told my shrink, a Black woman, the antidepressants just might be working, and I may just stick with her and life a bit longer. Thank you.
Dara Kalima. Real stuff. Thank you, Dara. Jessica Barksdale's 16th novel, What the Moon Did, was published in 2023 by Flexible Press. Her short story collection, Trick of the Porch Light, is forthcoming from Mouthfeel Press, and she has also published 2 poetry collections, When We Almost Drowned and Grim Honey. Jessica taught at Diablo Valley College in Pleasant Hill, California, and continues to teach for UCLA Extension and for the online MFA program at Southern New Hampshire University. She lives in the Pacific Northwest, and it's time to hear from Jessica Barksdale.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be here. And I wanted to thank David and Jane for the invite and for the lovely anthology, as well as the opportunities that you folks always provide us when we're published with you, and also for the Pushcart nomination, which I really appreciate. So I'm going to read the piece from the book and then just a poem, a newer poem. So this is called So Much Gone, and it starts with a quote. What is missing is the left leg of Jesus. Tour guide, Il Museo dell'Opera del Duomo. What is missing is the birthday present you decided I didn't want, the one that would have made me forgive you for all your generous lack of attention. You know, a ring, a decorative box, a bracelet, a barrette, a pie. What is missing is my joy. It left somewhere in a field, under soil, a rock, a field of grass, the entire sun, because it is bright up there. What is missing is hope, or what is missing is a lack of hope. Either way, it's hopeless. What is missing is something so large, I don't even know how to name it. But this absent thing is like being home, like sitting in a comfortable chair, listening to someone I love and care about, someone with a good story, someone who is funny. It is night, the lights yellow in the room. In the kitchen, a pot of ribollita simmers on the range, the air ripe with tomatoes and onions. In my heart, a gladness that seeps out like gold, a warmth I can pick up and see. This thing is so big, so full, so large, it covers me up, a feeling from my eyes to my toes. I want the evening to go on and on and on. What is missing is sanity. Have you read the newspaper? Did you look at your phone today? Have you scanned the reports, watched the charts, underlined the small print? We should all go back to bed. What is missing is the rest of my life. Look at it all behind me like a tattered cape. In front, a tiny baby shoe, too small and strangely decorated with sequins and glitter. I can hold it in the palm of my hand, but it doesn't fit except on my right index finger, alas. What is missing is my mother, who has regressed into a shell of her former self, a withered husk with eyes, who suddenly pops up, alert, full of stunning questions such as, why did I love my husband, and do I have another daughter? What is missing is connection, the spiderweb that once held us all together before TikTok and Netflix. Once I walked to your house, cutting through neighbors' yards, taking shortcuts, and rang the bell, asking at the door for you. Once I walked 10 miles across town and you met me halfway. Once I drove my car downstate to find you using a map and some scribbled notes. Once I drove from Atlanta to Atlantic Beach using only a compass to see you. Once we all gathered as a family in a church or an auditorium or a restaurant. Once we knew each other. What is missing is the answer to how to find what is missing. It's too late for me, but I hope you will look around, see what you can't find, and go find her, him, them, all. I tell you to do this so that hundreds of years later, no one will ever point to your statue, your story, your family, your house, and ask, look, do you see what is not there? See that absence in the whole of the world? Why is so much gone? And that's the one in this beautiful, beautiful book. And this poem, I want to, it's called Anxious. I was trying to get it to be called Ank Shush, but it just was too complicated. So Anxious. Sometimes when waiting for a security code to arrive on my cell phone, I imagine a hostage situation, me being forced to request numbers so the terrorists can do what? Rob my bank account? Buy Black Friday sales on Amazon? Well, that's what I think about as I wait. Or maybe it's a kidnapper, or maybe just an ex. Probably it's just me waiting for my code. Or what about cemeteries and how we weren't supposed to breathe when driving by them? Walking was worse, but there was only one cemetery in my town near the freeway, large enough that we inhaled, gasping when my mother finally zipped by. What was going to happen to us? Were we going to die? My mother never stopped breathing, at least, thank goodness. At least then, thank goodness, because we survived to not breathe another day. Once we spent an afternoon at a cemetery in Denver to see my grandfather's grave. We must have breathed for an hour next to his tombstone. My father's name was the same as his dad's. There it was, Mitchell and Stone. But when my father died, he was burnt to ash, nowhere to visit, no name. We can breathe when thinking about not being at a cemetery, but I wonder about other things, such as tetanus from garden dirt and how we crackle into ice bits if tossed from a spaceship, or how we are on a rock with a skin-thin membrane floating in the middle of a galaxy, universe, gargantuan hugeness. We have no clue where we are. We have no idea what we are. All I can offer you is a security code. Let me text it to you. Go ahead and buy that fancy backpack and rowing machine. I won't hurt you. Promise. Breathe. Thank you.
Show your love for Jessica Barksdale. Thank you very much, Jessica. Peter Carlaftes is the author of books including the poetry collections Life in the Past Lane, Drunk Yard Dog, and I Fold with the Hand I Was Dealt, and 2 collections of plays, Teatrophy and Triumph for Rent. He is co-editor of the annual contemporary Dada journal, Maintenant, and editor of The Faking of the President, 19 Stories of White House Noir. His poetry has appeared in New York City from the Inside, Love Love Magazine, Chorus, a literary mixtape, and many more. He is co-director of 3 Rooms Press, and his name is Peter Carlaftes. Come on, Peter.
All right. Thank you for including me in A Shape Produced by a Curve. I will read this piece in kind of a chronological order, but I have a new book out called Life in the Past Lane. And my life began in the Bronx like Dara there. So there we go. Show some love for the Bronx. Of course, last night I spent in the Bronx. I know the exact day. It was January 31st that I slept there and living in an apartment, January 31st, 1977. So it's been a long time, but that's where my roots are from. And this is when I was a little tyke. It's called No Dot, No Com. My grandpa told his kids just how much he hated Turks after fighting in the First Balkan War. Then, after sailing to America, assimilating life anew, he returned soon to Europe and fought in World War I, where the Germans shelled him with enough mustard gas to damage his lungs and eventually kill him, though in between, he made ends meet for his family as a florist. My aunt said in the mid-1930s, she'd climb up to Tar Beach and play a game with her best friend called Kill the Turks. I don't recall my pop ever calling out the Turks, yet he must have had some hate handed down. His best years began when he rejected a prearranged marriage Then upon learning the score as a shill out in Vegas, he bided time driving mob guys around to different poker games until he made his bones as a bookie in the 1950s, living large while taking bets. I was too young to remember my grandpa's death, but my first memory came age 3, staring east out the window in pajamas with a fever, watching this man paint a 2-family house perched atop one hanging scaffold that suddenly dropped a few feet to the right, tripping him back off the side. He fell straight down through a spiked iron fence, and I cried to my pop, "That man's dead." My pop looked out the window as the police arrived quickly, since the 46th precinct was right up the block, then led me over to the couch and turned cartoons on the TV. My pop was wearing pajamas too, just lazing around, taking bets on the phone. He never got dressed before noon. I thought about that poor man who died from doing his job. And now I think about my pop, who later told me how, when I was born, he had to work at the post office. And even though he paid off the timekeepers and most of the others there were feeding him bets, supervisors came around every so often and he'd have to show up to work for 2 weeks. Later on, he'd always say, those 2 weeks almost killed him. And also thinking now, they eventually did. They did. I mean, he's gone now. I don't know if it were the 2 weeks that did it, but like my grandfather, the mustard gas. Who knows? Another one from the Bronx, since I wanted to stick with my compatriot, Dara. And this is when I was kind of an adult, not really. Yeah, the Bronx. This was on Fordham Road near DeVoe Park. The car was parked at DeVoe Park, and the apartment I got was on Andrews Avenue. So, all right, here we go. My soul to keep. I snuck down the stairs in the quiet of night with a torn, stained pillowcase stuffed with torn, stained clothes because I didn't have the rent for the week gone by. Then I sat on a bench with my torn, stained lot and could think of no better place to be until I found a car on Fordham Road that seemed more abandoned than me. Its windows were shattered, the back seat inviting. I put my head down on that pillow of clothes, which I left in the car the next day once I woke, while I went off to hustle some food. This was 4 days of life, till a friend dropped by and gave the word that Richie moved out from Duke's up the block, so the couch was mine for $50 a month. So, enterprising young man that I was, I bummed a buck to buy a subway token and took the train down to Times Square, where I worked the door of some massage parlor, handing out flyers for $4 an hour, paid cash at the end of the night. 12 hours later, I climbed 5 flights to pay Duke the $50 and had a place for the month. The very next day, walking down to the park, I saw that damn car had its street side smashed in by some hit-and-run drunk in the middle of the night. Where I was once, wow, would have been me. Guys were laughing, should have been, ha, 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 though it wasn't. There was luck, yet no why. The next week, I watched as they towed off the car, then turned up my street sighing, here comes that 5 flights of stairs. All right, now I'm going to read the poem in the book. Thank you so much. Great weather, Jane and David. Thank you so much for putting this in the book. This happened years later to me, but it was a glorious moment. I guess just as much as knowing I was still alive and wasn't killed by a drunk sleeping in an abandoned car. I don't know. Maybe it was better now. It's called Hit and Run, and it's in this wonderful journal. So once driving home on the wagon from a bar, heading toward Potrero Hill, a car ran a stop sign on Florida through 17th, clipping my front end in the bargain. Then the driver had the nerve to take off into the night, so I followed in pursuit to no avail. They got away. Completely incensed, I returned to the scene, and there stood this long-haired guy in the middle of that intersection, holding a license plate up over his head, plate glowing in the streetlight. Amazingly, justice was served. Guy handed me the plate, laughing, "Fucker, drop this." I laughed and took the plate. "That driver's gonna pay." And I drove right off to Potrero Station, where I found Ronnie the cop, who ran a make on the plate. And right there, boom, rental car leased by so-and-so and so on. There was no real taste left from cashing that check, but my eyes light up whenever I picture that long-haired guy just standing there, holding up a glowing plate and laughing his old goddamn ass off. Thank you. All right, and I got one final here that actually took place earlier this year, but the encounter took place much earlier. It's called Every Cloud. My ex-wife died. Our younger son called me crying. Perhaps she fell. No one really knew, except on this day she was gone. She died in Phoenix, where she was born. And I went back to a time once. I was looking for a job there on one morning pushing noon with her and Max, not quite yet 2, both waiting in the car. I came out of that place just as unimpressed as the management was with me. When off to the left of the sidewalk strolled Chrissy Hind with her kid. So I slowly sidled up with our son while playfully bidding, "Please imbue him with your talents." She shot me an outraged look, lambasting, "I'm not Jesus Christ." I pulled Jennifer into the conversation, soothing Chrissy. She's one of your biggest fans. And then they talked for a bit while their kids interacted as I skulked back to the car. Chrissy asked Jennifer, "You want to see the show?" So later on, there we were, and we enjoyed ourselves immensely. Some things work out favorably, however long they last. So thinking back to that look she shot, it sure seemed as if she disregarded the words out of any man's mouth. And I realize now she must be still way ahead of her time. All right, thank you.
Peter Carlaftes, let's hear it for him. Yeah, show your love. Show your love. So, wow, I'm gonna say
Wait a second. I was university in 183rd. You?
Yes,
Where at?
that was my corner growing up. Sorry, we'll
Get
be quiet
out
now.
of here. I was on
I'm sorry to
that
get
big
in
building on
between
the back of the
the
aqueduct.
Bronx reunion.
Okay, we'll
here.
talk later.
Very sorry. Very sorry. Everybody, while you were listening to that reading, you may have remarked on one or more of our readers, how you were interested to know a little more about them, maybe read a little bit more about them, or, say, oh, they edit a journal too. I bet they do that well. So I'm going to say everybody's name again. You heard from John Amen. You heard from Susana Praver-Pérez. You heard from Norm Mattox, Amy King, Paul Corman-Roberts, Dara Kalima, Jessica Barksdale, and Peter Kalaftes. And they are all in this anthology called A Shape Produced by a Curve from Great Weather Form Media.